Hey guys, are you ready to get a piece of my brain? Today, we're going to talk about how an automation engineer's brain works outside of the office. First, we want to talk about gratitude. So, there's a quote by David Steindl Rast that says, "It's not joy that makes us grateful, it is gratitude that makes us joyful." So, the first step is looking at gratitude. Do we have an attitude of gratitude? And this is going to be really important for the next step. And I'll give you an example of a way that this has helped me in my life. So I used to live in an RV, and there was not running water directly into the RV except through a hose. So the water pressure was like really bad. And it wasn't until I went back into an established house or place to take a shower that I realized, wow, this increase in water pressure is actually amazing. I could actually lather up and rinse off a lot quicker, and it just felt nicer. So that was super cool. Number two, we have to learn to hope for better. Spend time reflecting on ways that your company can grow, benefits, maybe even also in your personal life, right? So this is the way that I've thought about my personal life. Spend time reflecting on self improvement and how that directly impacts your goals. And it's important to abandon perfectionism and adopt self competition. So, an example of that in my life is when I was in high school, I used to run a mile and try and beat myself on the time. So, every single time I ran a mile, I would time myself and see how fast I could go. And that self competition got me to a place where I was actually sort of happy with where I got my mile at. I got to 6:25, which was pretty good. Um, but there's always room for improvement. So, how can you look at the opportunities you have and see what can be better? And the attitude of gratitude is a really important first step. So, you can look at that in a healthy way. Gaining domain knowledge. We all started out not knowing about particular topics. The people that we learned it from somewhere, whether they learned it themselves or they were taught it. So, it's really important that we find answers. And usually, when we continue to find answers, it could continue to lead us to asking more questions. But if we're consistent, we'll start figuring out the right questions to ask, right? So, love asking questions. You may ask questions aimlessly at first, but as you gain more knowledge on the subject or what you're trying to learn about, then you'll know to ask more pointed questions. Then you'll start looking for specific outcomes from those questions. So, first questions will be about gaining knowledge. And once enough knowledge is gained, the questions will be more about experimentation. As an example, today I'm using a different mic than I was the last time I was recording. So, this is a dynamic mic, and I had a condenser mic. The differences were that the condenser mic is a lot more sensitive. It's better for studio recordings, and maybe my place looks like a studio to you, but it's not. So I had to experiment to see how both mics worked in this environment. So this is my secondary test. This is part of my experimentation right now. Making this video is going to be testing how it sounds. Next, we'll look at simplification over implementation. Before adding new things in your life, think about ways you can simplify, right? Because the more things we add, the more things there are to keep track of, right? And even within that experimentation we just talked about, there are more things that you will have to look at the results of. More experiments, the more things you implement, the more experiments you are looking for, and the more you'll have to keep track of. So trying to automate on convolution will leave gaps in the foundation of your effort, meaning you may be making overall progress or the overall process easier where there's actually opportunity to eliminate, maybe trim some fat. So my example of simplification over implementation, I have a robot vacuum, and I could have made a choice to live in an apartment or a home. Now, before implementing or buying that robot vacuum, I chose to live in an apartment because it was smaller and easier to maintain. And that could have eliminated the need to have a robot vacuum because it could have just been easier for me to vacuum myself. Um, the truth is I don't really like vacuuming, so I chose to get the vacuum anyway, the robot vacuum. Um, but these are different ways that you could potentially simplify. Right now, I don't have to maintain potentially a robot vacuum, although I do because it's just easier for my life. But that's an example of simplification over implementation. Hey guys, let us know what you think. If this has been how an automation engineer's brain works outside of the office.